Friends, in chapter number 8, how do organisms can reproduce? Let's continue with the topic 8.3, sexual reproduction in flowering plant, and the question is already given, the sexual reproduction in flowering plant. Explain. Pollen grains are produced in anther, which is with the help of by male gamete, it is called stamen, while female gamete, egg cell, or you called it ovum, each ovule of an ovary. The process of transfer of pollen grains can be present in the part of stamen, and egg cell can be present in ovule. The process of transfer of pollen from anther of stamen to stigma of pistil. Anther of stamen, stigma of pistil. Let's revise it. A process of transfer of pollen. Pollen can be produced in the anther of stamen. Stigma can be present in the pistil. A process of transfer of pollen from anther of stamen to the stigma of pistil is called pollination. Two types of pollination can occur. Two types of pollination can occur. It is called self-pollination or cross-pollination. Transfer of pollen occurs in the same flower. It is called self-pollination. But in another case, one flower to the another, transfer of pollen in the pollen from pistil of stigma. Anther pollen can be developed in the anther, stigma can be developed in the pistil, even both can be present in one flower to another. It is achievement is called same flower, it is called self-pollination, but another flower it is called cross-pollination. But cross-pollination can be achieved by pollinating agents like wind, water, animals, insects, etc. So, two types of pollination can occur. One is self-pollination, second is cross-pollination. When the fertilization can take place, here we draw the diagram of germination of pollen in stigma. We can elongate the stigma and large portion of stigma and elongated the style. First is pollen grain, then stigma, male germ cell can be transferred with the help of style, pollen tube, ovary, female germ cell. Here you can take the particular numbers of cells. Here you can take the 8 number of cells, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 female germ cell, and the diagram shows germination of pollen in stigma. Germination of pollen can be stick in the terminal part of the stigma, and ovule can be developed through the ovule. They can be passed through to the ovule. Pollen can be stick in the part of stigma, and with the help of pollen tube it can reach with the ovule. This process of fusion of pollen and stigma, this process is called fertilization. After fertilization, when fusion of pollen grain and stigma can be occur in the eggs in the ovule, so the fertilization can occur and the fertilized cell can be formed in the zygote. Zygote is capable for the new plant. What can be process can be occur in the post fertilization events? When zygote can develop, it can be developed into embryo within the ovule. Three parts can be developed: ovule, ovary and seed. Ovule develops to a tough coat, is gradually converted into seed. See, tough coat can be developed. Ovule develops a tough coat and is gradually converted into seed, while ovary can grow rapidly and ripens to form a fruit. Ovule converted into seed coat, ovary converted into form a fruit, while seed is a future plant or embryo with help of seedling. Under it converted into seedling, and under favorable condition it can be grow from the new plant. This process is called seed germination. First you have to write about the information about anther and ovule, then write about the definition of pollination, then write types of pollination, self-pollination and cross-pollination, then give the diagram of fertilization, when fertilization can occur, what is fertilization, and after fertilization zygote can be developed and zygote have the new future plant, and what the events can be occur in the post fertilization, when zygote can be converted into embryo, and a zygote can be goes into the development behind one by one cell and make a embryo within the ovule. Ovule can be gradually converted into seed. Ovary grows rapidly and ripens to form a fruit, while seed has a future plant or embryo. With the help of this process is seedling under favorable condition. The process is called seed germination. Let's take the theory in the textbook, because the word of flower can be slightly confused, so be clear in the textbook also. So while you read in the textbook, you can clear the word. You can goes to the page number 135, the diagram which is given. You can see in the paragraph of diagram with given. You can see, you can concentration on the second paragraph here in front of diagram, second paragraph. Thus the pollen needs to be transferred from the stamen to the stigma. If this transfer of pollen occurs in the same flower, it is referred to as self-pollination. You have to start the answer with the stamen and ovule, then give the definition of pollination and then about self-pollination. On the other hand, if the pollen is transferred from one flower to another, it is known as cross-pollination. This transfer of pollen from one flower to another is achieved by agents like wind, water, or animals. You can write it insects, etc. After the pollen lands on a suitable stigma, it has to reach the female germ cells which are in the ovary. For this, a tube grows out of the pollen grain and travels through style to reach the stigma. After fertilization, the zygote divides several times to form an embryo within ovule. The ovule develops a tough coat and is gradually converted into seed. The ovule grows rapidly and ripens to form a fruit. Ovary grows rapidly and ripens to form a fruit. We already studied, we already understood it. Two questions cannot be taken. The seed contains the future plant or embryo which develops into a seedling under appropriate conditions. This process is called germination, or you called it seed germination. See, both the questions are important. Sexual reproduction in flowering plant. The question is arise with the help of plant. We already take it. The reproductive parts of angiosperms are located in the flower. We already studied about the parts of flower in last session. We see in the textbook. You have already studied the different parts of flowers: sepals, petals, stamen and pistils. Stamens and pistil are contain the germ cells. Question cannot be taken. The flower may be unisexual. It called papaya or watermelon when it contains either stamens or pistil, or bisexual, hibiscus, mustard, datura, etc. Stamen is the male reproductive part and it produces pollen grains that are yellowish in color. When you take the pollen grains, it will be yellowish powder form, yellowish in color. Pistil is present in the center of a flower and is the female reproductive part. It is made of three parts. The solan bottom parts is the ovary, middle elongated part, it is the style, and the terminal part, which may be sticky, is the stigma. The ovary contains ovules and each ovule has an egg cell. The male germ cell produced by pollen grain fuses with the female gamete present in the ovule. This fusion of the germ cells or fertilization gives us the zygote, which is capable of growing to a new plant. These are the information of point number 8.3.2, sexual reproduction in flowering plant. With the words can be important whenever you write it. So whenever you write the answer for two questions, you have too much concentrated on words and then write it. First you can revise one or two times, read one or two times and then write it. You may to sure capable of write the answer. Let's continue with the activity number 8.7, which is related to sexual reproduction in flowering plants. The activity आगे की सारी एक्टिविटीज़ हमने क्यों नहीं ली है 8.6 अप टू 8.6? बिकॉज द इंफॉर्मेशन कैन ऑलरेडी गिवन इन द asexual reproduction, parts of asexual reproduction, all information can be taken, so we cannot take the activity 8 up to 8.6, but 8.7 is different, so we can take it. Soak a few seeds of Bengal gram, which is locally called chana, and keep them overnight. Drain the excess water and cover the seeds with a wet cloth and leave them for a day. Make sure that the seeds do not become dry. Cut open the seeds carefully and observe the different parts. Compare your observation with the figure 8.9 and see if you can identify all the parts. You have to draw the figure of 8.9 which is related for the germination. You can see the embryo can be developed. Embryo can be developed with the process of seedling. It is called development of embryo. 3 parts can be seen in the figure. You can concentrate on the parts: palmule, which is called future root; radicle, which is called palmule, future shoot; radicle, future root; and cotyledon, food storage. When the development of seed can be occur, embryo can be occur, the nutrients can be required, so nutrients can be stored in the cotyledon. You have to study in standard 8 about 2 types of cotyledons. It is 2 types of cotyledons. 1 type of cotyledon in maize, 1 cotyledon can occur. In chana it is 2 cotyledon can occur. 2 type of cotyledons can occur. Cotyledon have the rich nutrient for the process of developing of new plant. 3 parts can be seen in the chana. You can, when it is germination process can occur: palmule, radicle and cotyledon. The palmule has the develop in the future shoot, the radicle develop in the future root, and the cotyledon it can be food, it can store the food maximum when the process of germination can occur. So here we can see the longitudinal section of flower, the germination of pollen on stigma with the theory, and you have to draw the diagram of germination with the example of chana.